Planted up in the stand of young oak, we also have Acer campestre, our field maple, just behind me. Now the field maple is our only true native maple here in the UK. If we take a look closer at the tips of the branches, we can see from a distance that the buds are arranged in opposites. So this is one of the few native trees which are actually in opposites, not alternate. Let's take a closer look. Let's get a closer look at these buds. As we can see, they are paired opposite along the twig. You can see that on the tip as well. Now the buds themselves are small and they're a reddish brown. Although it's late February now, and already a lot of these buds are starting to green up as the leaf develops inside them. You can see the old growth here and the new growth where the bark goes a much more of a rich brown from the grey colour that we have here on the older growth. If I was to describe field maple buds, I'd say they are very much like sycamore but in miniature. And that's no accident, of course, because sycamores are acers, they are maples as well. So a good way to think of field maple buds is to think of sycamores in miniature. Here's some of those buds I mentioned which are starting to turn green as the leaf develops inside, so look out for that, especially in late winter. It's worth noting as well that a lot of these buds are forming on these short twigs that come off a larger branch. You can see it again here and further down as well. We didn't see it so much on the other field maple we looked at, but one distinctive feature of the young twigs is that you can get this reddish brown colour to the bark. It's really picked out by this end of the day sunlight, so look out for that on some trees. Looking at the bark, there's not a lot to really distinguish it as we see it. It's grey-brown with typical fissures appearing with age, but there is one distinguishing feature we can use to help us identify this as a field maple, and that's using touch. If I put my fingernail into some of these larger ridges here, they give and feel slightly corky. Elder does this as well. So look out for that softness, feel for that with your fingernail. Here's another really distinctive feature of the field maple which we can use to identify it. Can you see these long vertical ridges running along this branch here? This is described in some books as being like a crocodile's back. I think that's a really good way to remember it and very distinctive of this tree. Looking behind us, we can see the general shape of the field maple as it stood out on its own. It's quite a rounded crown. I have read as well that the older branches do tend to droop down before turning up again, so look out for that in older specimens. Looking up into the crown of this field maple, there's something about its character that reminds me of hawthorn. The way the small branches are higgledy-piggledy, back and forth, they stop and start and create this density, which I suppose makes it so suitable for hedgerows. On taking a closer look into the crown, we can see that there's some damage as the bark has been gnawed away. This has been done by grey squirrels as they get to the sweet sap underneath. And it's also influenced the way the tree grows as the tree reacts to this damage and sends out new growth, giving it more of a spindly, bushy, haphazard appearance. I've seen this squirrel damage on quite a lot of the maples around here, on the main stem as well as higher up in the crown. There's another example here of squirrel damage as they've gnawed their way through the bark to get to the sap underneath and created quite extensive damage on the tree. It could be argued that they're also creating deadwood habitat for invertebrates. But that's a debate for another time. Down here at the woodland floor, we can check to see if we've got any field maple leaf litter that can help us confirm our identification when we're out in the woods. We do have a lot of leaf litter, amongst a lot of oak as well. It's worth noting that it's staying on the ground here. And what's noticeable is how much variation there is in the size of the leaf with the field maple. We've got the classic maple shape, the Canadian maple leaf, which hopefully you can see there. It's got 5 lobes, 3 large ones and 2 small ones at the base. But I also have a leaf here from the field maple, which is considerably smaller, as we can see. In order not to get the leaf litter confused with sycamore, remember that sycamore leaves are consistently the same size. Usually no smaller than this in a sycamore. This is actually from the field maple, but field maple leaves do vary in size, and we've got quite a small one here, as you can see, in comparison to that one there. And although they're both lobed, as classic maple leaves are, there is quite a bit of variation still. There's our field maple leaf on the ground. A distinctive maple shape, as we'd expect, but in miniature, much smaller than the sycamore. I wanted to concentrate just for a minute on the variety of leaf litter that I've found on the floor here underneath our field maple. We can see quite a small 3-lobed leaf here, and a medium one, and a much larger leaf, which is no less than maple, but is more pointed. The lobes are more pronounced all round. So you have variation within the leaves themselves. So I wouldn't rely completely on the field maple leaf litter. I would look at things like the buds and the bark to be sure. Often, field maple is used as a hedgerow tree in hedgerow mixes, or also in scrub areas, so it can be clipped and flailed down quite closely where it becomes quite a densely packed tree or shrub, great for keeping stock in or using as a natural barrier. This tree here is a really good example of how it's easy to get your ID wrong with a quick glance. It's important to look closer. I walked past this and I thought, oh, there's a hawthorn at the side of the hill here. I looked at the kind of craggy fissured bark and the really kind of messy nature of the fine branches, how they're kind of intertwined. But let's look closer. And it is a field maple. We've got the opposite buds at the end here. Hawthorn would be alternate, this is opposite. So very characteristic there. And on the floor, it's absolutely littered with field maple leaves. There they are there, the classic kind of maple leaf shape, but in miniature. Let's get a closer look at this field maple. It's a veteran and its bark is really fissured and cracked up. Now, this is great for us as tree identifiers because usually with something like field maple, which is a shrubby tree, we tend to see it in the understory, suppressed by other trees, or planted in a hedgerow mix. But this one has been allowed to spread out. So we've got a really good look at what a field maple can do if given enough space and light. What's noticeable is that this field maple is also supporting a whole host of lichens and mosses as well, all along the branches, so fantastic aerial habitat. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope it's piqued your interest to find out more about the beautiful native tree species that we have here in Britain. But before you go, I wanted you to know that this video is actually just a taster of a much larger tree identification video course that I've created for people just like you. The full course covers over 50 tree species that you'll commonly find here in the UK. and we look at those tree species in all 4 seasons, starting in winter to spring, summer, and then finally autumn. In each season, we're going to be picking out those distinctive features, which means you'll be able to identify the tree no matter the time of year. As well as videos like you've seen today, the full course also includes hundreds of photos, you're going to get questionnaires on tree species, and you'll also receive a certificate at the end of the whole course. Let me help you see the wood from the trees as I take you from tree beginner to tree expert. To find out more, simply follow the link in the description below, and you'll also get access to 2 more free Tree ID videos as a preview. So you're just 1 click away from becoming a tree expert. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again in the woods.